I could thank you more eloquently if I could see you, but it's all black, so I assume there are people there. My last visit to New Mexico was 5 years ago to join in the celebration of the 20th anniversary of IRC. I'm very pleased to be able to participate in the 25th anniversary celebration. Since that time, as you know, the name has changed, the scope has broadened, but the mission remains. The central component, as they put it, is to make the United States a more responsible global partner and to engage citizens in that endeavor. Well, that task was urgent enough 5 years ago. Even at that time, there were warnings from right at the heart of the establishment that, I'm quoting, much of the world regards the United States as a rogue state and the greatest threat to their existence. That happens to be Samuel Huntington, Harvard professor in Foreign Affairs, the journal of the Council on Foreign Relations, and he was not alone. Shortly after, the president of the American Political Science Association repeated the same message in very similar words. That was 5 years ago. Since then, the situation has become far worse. It's now not much of the world that regards the U.S. as a rogue state and the greatest threat to their existence, but most of the world, almost all of it, in fact. George Bush his administration has succeeded in a few years in making the United States the most feared and often hated country in the world.
Noam, if we could sort of start by discussing Iraq. As you said in the concluding parts of your speech, even the elections which are taking place in a very limited way might produce a government which could demand that the United States leaves Iraq. Traditionally, the United States, unlike the European empires, has preferred to rule indirectly. They don't like being present. They send the Marines in when they have to, but they prefer to rule countries through local relays who do the dirty work themselves. So, I mean, Iraq is a very complex situation, but theoretically, there is nothing to stop them from withdrawing the troops if they are convinced that the government there is going to do their bidding.
Well, if they're convinced of that,
yeah.
But how can they be convinced? In fact, I don't have to tell you, let's just imagine what the policies might be of an independent Iraq, independent sovereign Iraq, let's say more or less democratic. What are the policies likely to be? Well, there's going to be a Shiite majority, so they'll have some significant influence over policy. The first thing they'll do is reestablish relations with Iran. Now, they don't particularly like Iran, but they don't want to go to war with them, so they'll move towards what was happening already, even under Saddam, restoring some sorts of friendly relations with Iran. Well, that's the last thing the United States wants. It's worked very hard to try to isolate Iran. The next thing that might happen is a Shiite-controlled, more or less democratic Iraq might stir up feelings in the Shiite areas of Saudi Arabia, which happen to be right nearby, and which happen to be where all the oil is. So you might find what in Washington must be the ultimate nightmare, a Shiite region which controls most of the world's oil and is independent. Furthermore, an independent Iraq is very likely, you know more about it than me, so I'm interested in hearing what you think, but my guess is that an independent sovereign Iraq would try to take its natural place as a leading state in the Arab world, maybe the leading state. And, that's something that goes back to biblical times. What does that mean? Well, it means rearming, first of all. They have to confront the regional enemy. The regional enemy, overpowering enemy, is Israel. They're going to have to rearm to confront Israel, which means probably developing weapons of mass destruction. just as a deterrent.